Do you recognize that experience and that feeling where you know what you want to be doing and you know what you should be doing, but you're just not doing it? It feels like something is holding you back from taking action. This invisible wall or maybe this invisible break that you experience inside of you. And you just don't know what it is. You don't know how to move past it. And this topic came up 3 times already this week in the sessions that I was doing. And there was this one girl, I was in a session with her, and she had her 5-year plan ready. So a lot of people, they don't know what step to take forward because they just lack clarity. But with her, she knew every step to take. She knew what her 5-year plan looked like. She knew the dreams that she wanted to create, and she was not doing it. She said, every single time I'm taking a few steps, but I'm also feeling that I'm playing it small. I don't know what it is. Something is holding me back. And I think it's because I don't feel good enough. And this is where things became slippery and dangerous, because when you experience this feeling of I'm running into an invisible wall, or I experience this resistance inside of me, this invisible break, what kind of conclusions do you create from this? She was creating the conclusion of, oh, I'm not feeling good enough, and that's why I'm not taking action. So let me solve that problem of not feeling good enough. So she was going into her past, maybe even into trauma. And the question is, how do you know that this is the problem that you need to be solving? Like, you don't. This is just an idea, like, oh, I don't feel good enough, so this might be the problem that is holding me back. But the danger of going into the wrong direction and solving the wrong problem is that you start digging a hole for yourself, especially when you start digging into your past, that might not even be the right direction. And then you have to get out of that hole as well. And that's the challenge when you start to dive into topics like that. How do you know what problem to solve? And that's why it's so important to be in conversation with people in general. Doesn't even have to be a professional. It could be a coach, could be a psychologist, could be a mentor, whatever it is, friends, family, but you need someone to check on you if you're even solving the right problems in the first place. So she was going into that route, and when I was exploring this with her in the session, we put that to the side for a moment, and we started to explore, how is she creating herself? How is she creating the world around her? How is she creating that 5-year plan? And in that exploration, she realized that she was creating that 5-year plan, and the first 2-3 years of building this, she was creating this as a hell, as a prison, because there was hustle, there was grind. She needed to lock herself up in the room to just be grinding and working. She wasn't experiencing any freedom, no social contacts, and no connection with people, even though that was very important for her. She wanted to achieve all these dreams, to experience connection, to experience more freedom, to experience all of these things. But the way that she was creating the process was the complete opposite. There was no freedom, there was no connection, because she was locked up in a room just working and grinding. So she could see the conflict, the internal conflict that was there. And that's what is happening when you experience this internal break. It means, especially if you want to move towards something that you want, there is an internal conflict happening. So there is something that pulls you forward, but there is also something like, we do not want to go into that direction. And for her, it was the story of what the process looks like. And when she could see the story that she was creating around the process, she could also see, why am I creating it like that? Like, I don't even know what the process is. I could even create the process in any way that I want to. It's so obvious when you can see it. So when she could see it, when it's in her awareness, she could let go. And the level of freedom she experienced from that, it's insane. Like, she couldn't even talk properly anymore because of that insight. One insight is all that you need to completely shift your existence. And from that, she was taking action. She was excited to move forward. Like, the break was gone. When you can see it, it's so obvious. It's so simple. But when you can't see what you can't see, it seems like the problem is impossible to solve. And that's why I always recommend people be in conversation with people. If you get stuck in these points, ask for help, get a coach, because sometimes one session, we explored this for 20 minutes. And she was stuck for this for I don't know how long. So when you experience this internal break, you want to go deeper into, what is that conflict? What is the internal conflict that is happening? If you would put words onto that break, because an internal break or this invisible wall, like, what does that even mean? So if you want to put words on that feeling and that experience, what is actually happening there? So for her, it was, of course, related to the process, but there is a way that you are creating what the process looks like, what is going to happen. Maybe you have this internal goal of, I want to be safe, I don't want to be judged, I don't want this, but when I do this, then this starts happening. Or sometimes People think that I lose my authenticity when I start doing this, or they think that they have to follow a certain framework because that's the only framework that will make them successful. And this is what I see a lot with coaches when there's so many things that I disagree with in the industry. There are so many coaches that coach other coaches on how to build a coaching practice, but they've never ever built a coaching practice themselves. They are only coaching other coaches on how to build a coaching practice. And if you're looking at the pure form of coaching, it is very different in the way that you build a practice than, let's say, a normal business, as in roofing or whatever sales. It doesn't matter what business it is, because coaching is a very different kind of business. So certain frameworks, they are different. And this was such a difficult lesson for me to learn, apply to a coaching business. So when I talk to a lot of starting coaches and they have hired like a coach that they saw online around ads or around outreach or around this, around that, they get stuck because they do not want to take action because they feel it doesn't feel authentic to them. It doesn't feel true to them. So they want this authentic expression in this whole creation process of their business, but now they're pushed into a certain framework of this is what you should be doing to be creating that business. So of course there's the conflict. So this is where you always want to go back to what is true for you. So when I'm in conversation with coaches, I'm like, fuck all the frameworks, fuck all the strategies and systems that people tell you what you should be doing. What is true for you? Even though it's like completely out of the box, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I know coaches that build a whole practice by approaching people on the street. You know how crazy that is? No mentor or coach will advise you, go approach people on the street to build your practice. And I know coaches that have built teams of 15 of 20 coaches by doing this, full practices. So this is where you have to be in alignment with what is your truth. So you know when there is an internal conflict. So this could be one of the breaks that you experience, or one of the invisible walls when you try to put yourself into a framework that doesn't fit, that's not meant for you. And that's why I always, and this is my style of coaching, I believe you are the expert of you. I want to guide you to your truth. Because when you connect to your truth, that's when the expansion happens. That's when the excitement happens and the creation happens. But when you think I should be doing this and be put into this framework, then you get stuck. Because you lose your authentic expression, the authenticity piece, your truth. So maybe that's one of your breaks. Maybe like the example that I gave of one of the clients, maybe how you create the process and how you create the journey is so heavy, is so intense of all the things that are going to be happening, which might not even be true. But you need to articulate what it is, because if you can't see it, it has control over you. That's why you need to bring it up into your awareness. So it requires introspection, and it requires maybe a conversation with a coach, just a session to explore what is actually happening here. What is that invisible break? So that's one thing, but there might be so many different ways in which you are creating that invisible break for yourself. And that's why it's also dangerous. If you've been trying to solve a problem around this invisible break and it hasn't been working, you might be solving the wrong problem as well. And this is why you can cut off so much time by being in conversation with someone else to explore this.